And Facebook's being weird.
And the stream is live.
Is
So
it live or is it
is it
Memorex?
Memorex, right? So I love the fact that you quoted me, with Lori was co-hosting, Dr. Feynman or Dr. Lori or whatever we call her was co-hosting. And if Robert was on the show, he would say, is it live or is it Memorex? Which, you know what that means, right? Memorex is the old tape company from back in no, I'm talking like cassette tapes. Like you couldn't tell whether it was live or Memorex. Remember what a cassette was?
Yes, I do. I had cassettes. Thank you very much.
All right. So you know what 8-track tapes were? Did you have an 8-track tape player in your car?
No, we did not have that.
Okay.
That we did
not
have.
I go back to 8-track tape players in your car. And then it used to like eat your tape. You used to get all pissed off. But but that's okay. So happy belated Indigenous Peoples Day. Right? So obviously we're a day after Columbus Day, celebrating
I am never calling it that, for the record, people.
Celebrating the great history of the Italian American immigrants to this country and everything they've contributed from Don Corleone on down, right? Soprano. I'm being funny, of course, but
obviously
the thing that amazes me, right, is you sometimes feel like you're in Alice in Wonderland, because I remember, got to be 20 years ago, I'm out in California. My sister, who is as far left as I am far right, if you will, or as conservative, she's as liberal. I shouldn't use the word far right, because she's as liberal as I am conservative.
Okay.
And, and look, she was my person. We loved each other. Our politics didn't matter. But so we're out in Berkeley. She would introduce me, by the way, as her token Republican brother to all her friends. But even as liberal as she was, the city of Berkeley, and she ran the Parks and Recreation Commission. I'm sorry, she was the chief architect, landscape architect for the Parks and Recreation Commission.
That's cool.
And she said to me, we're at dinner one night, she goes, you want to hear something really crazy? I'm like, yeah. She said, they just proposed a resolution in the city of Berkeley to change the Columbus holiday from Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day because Columbus was a racist.
Yeah.
She looked at me, but you got to remember, this is 20 years ago. She looked at me and laughed her ass off. That it was because even to someone as ardently liberal as my sister was, she thought that this was so far over the pale, and I looked at her and I said, you do know, Deb, that out here you're a conservative. And she said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, it's all relative to scale, right? I mean, compared to me, you're really liberal, but out here, you're the conservative compared to the wackos that are out here. She, you could see it on her face. She would look at me, and then all of a sudden, she had this light of recognition, and she just died laughing, a belly laugh, because she finally got it. I'm like, yeah, out here, you're the liberal. So that's how off the charts we are.
Think about this too, Robert. Italians were basically like slaves at one point in this country. They were degraded. Italians need not apply. Like, that's one of the
Italians
things
and Jews.
That's what is so funny about this is, like, you guys are part of the reason why I imagine that Columbus Day was a thing to begin with, was to like kind of say sorry for like treating y'all like sucky. I don't know.
Columbus Day was to honor, the Italian heritage in this country, which is one of the backbones of this country, which, by the way, they have now determined that, you ready for this? Drum roll, please. It is, Columbus was not only Italian, he was Jewish.
Shut the front door.
So they've got his DNA and the DNA of his son, and you can look it up online. The Spanish scientist announced in a new documentary, DNA analysis shows 15th century explorer Christopher Columbus was a Sephardic Jew from Western Europe. So he's a Jew and he's Italian, which look, there aren't much different with Jews and Italians anyways, right? It's all about food and talking with your hands. So, the Jews do it and the Italians do it. So it would make sense that we're related, right?
It made perfectly good sense. Yes, I'm with it.
So he's got the best of both worlds. But in any event, happy belated Indigenous Peoples Day. Makes me crazy.
Love it.
Hello, and welcome to Of the People, the myth of a close election. So this election, we are, 20 days away from the election, and all you hear is how close this election is going to be. Oh, the election is razor thin. Trump is up, Trump is down. Harris is up, Harris is down. At least that's what we're being told. Ladies and gentlemen, do not believe it. They are setting the stage for another, let's call it 2020 type event, whatever that is, and however you see the 2020 elections. But let's be clear on the results. In 2020, right, Joe Biden got 81 million votes, and Donald Trump got 74 million votes. And we're rounding up our numbers here. That's 7 million differential. What is that? An 8% differential, 9% differential, something like that. It's not even close. So the fact that they're telling you it's going to be another close election is just not factual. And let's look at the prior elections. In 2016, Hillary Clinton actually got more votes than Donald Trump by 3 million, and that was a close election. In 2012, you had Mitt Romney, who lost by, let me get my numbers, 5 million votes. In 28, the height of the messianic mania of Barack Obama won by 10 million votes. None of this is even close, right? And by the way, in 2008, like I said, at the height of this messianic lunacy that Barack Obama was the second coming of something, that he doubled the electoral votes that Senator McCain got. So none of this was even close. And this really brings us back to the 2020 election as well. So someone needs to explain to me, let's do the numbers, right? Joe Biden got 81 million votes in 2020, and Barack Obama, let me get my numbers right. Barack Obama got 69.5 million votes. So you're telling me that Joe Biden got 12 million more votes, 17% more votes with the hide in the basement strategy than Barack Obama. You know, if you believe that there's oceanfront property in Iowa, I'd like to sell you, but we're not here to talk about that part of it. But the other thing that really dawns on me is the Harris campaign's strategy, if this is really a close election, doesn't make sense. Lack of energy, what I call it's a rope-a-dope strategy, right? If you're an old boxing fan like I am, Muhammad Ali used to have rope-a-dope, and the dope part certainly applies to the Harris campaign for sure. But it's a lackadaisical approach. She's billing herself as the underdog, but she doesn't seem like she's taking this really seriously. Forget about the fact that she hasn't done a press conference since she's been the nominee. She does these softball interviews on The View. She's about to go on Fox with Bret Baier. Supposedly she's going to go on Joe Rogan, but I'll believe that when you see it. That's right up there with the oceanfront property in Iowa, right? But you're losing support. If you haven't seen the Saturday Night Live skit, we'll bring it to you later in the show. But at the end of the day, do not believe that this is a close election. I will tell you that this is being reported by the media, and they're no longer newspaper, journalists, right? They're opinion journalists, and they have an opinion, and they're trying to drive a result. And by telling us that this is going to be a close election, they're setting this up for whatever comes, that, it was a close election, therefore they can pull it out. I don't think this is a close election at all. Look at the rallies, look at the energy. Anybody who thinks that this is a close election is just not paying attention. We'll see what the results are. Let's hope we don't have computer glitches in the middle of the night that stop and start again as they did before. But the prediction here, ladies and gentlemen, is this is not going to be a close election at all. And that's the monologue. And I'm thrilled, by the way, joining us this evening to talk about local politics, state politics, federal politics. New Hampshire State Party Chair, Republican State Party Chair, Chairman Chris Ager is back with us on Of the People. Mr. Chairman, welcome back to Of the People. Thrilled to have you back.
All right. Thank you. It's great to be here. Hey, I don't think it's going to be a close election either. Electoral College, I think Trump wins in a blowout.
Predictions, ladies and gentlemen. You heard it here.
That's what I do.
So far you're batting 1,000 in most races, including the Manchester mayoral race, which I think was quite a coup for not only Jay, but also for you as the state party chair who worked so diligently to make that happen. So let's start and talk about the national race first, right? In 2020, President Trump lost New Hampshire. Am I right? By about 7%, give or take, about 60,000 votes. Okay. What do you and again, I'm not asking you to predict New Hampshire because New Hampshire is an ardently independent state, but what are you seeing on the ground? What are you seeing at the rallies? Because, and then how do you think this affects the ticket? Because obviously, Kelly Ayotte's running for governor. We've got New Hampshire 1 and New Hampshire 2 both in play, but what's the state of affairs in presidential politics in New Hampshire?
Yeah. So right now we're not in the top tier of the battleground states. So there's 7 battleground states that the campaign is focused on. We're just below that. And so we don't get the kind of frontline attention, but the polls have been steadily narrowing. And again, polls don't tell the answer, but the trend is fascinating.
What do
gap
you mean?
has been narrowed. So, some of our polls are really focus groups, and like the UNH polls a focus group. And so whatever those people decide, the numbers maybe not as important as the trend if it's the gap is narrow. So the movement is more important than the raw number sometimes. And the trends have been closing. So the momentum's been on the Trump side. Kelly,
sorry, Chairman. That's one of my questions was a lot of the stuff I'm hearing is basically like, at this time in 2020, Trump was behind Biden by some certain amount. And now he's either neck and neck or ahead in polling and all of these things. And so I know people say don't trust the polls, but like what I hear you saying is like, that's good, right? That momentum that we're seeing is what we should be looking for.
Yes, and it's the movement as opposed to like the raw number. A poll, polls are polls. But if we've had several in a row that are trending closer, that means we've got momentum. So it's a good sign.
Okay.
And on the ground here, it feels very much that we have the advantage in the intensity. The Trump voters and supporters, the intensity is enormous. The Harris voters doesn't seem so intense. It's almost like they're embarrassed to admit that they're Harris supporters. Will that translate into a few votes?
Say that again, Robert.
With good reason.
Yeah, and her running mate. There's enough swirl out there that he's not going to help her. Waltz is a train wreck that's getting ready to hit the brick wall. So the trend looks good. Whether or not we can win in New Hampshire for the first time in 24 years, presidential, remains to be seen. But it feels a lot more like 2016, where it was very, very close, 1,700 votes. Feels much more like that than it does 2020. So I'm pretty hopeful here that even without being in one of the battleground states, we could eke out a win. The momentum's got to continue. Kelly's going to win. I'm convinced of that. Trump's going to win nationwide. Ayotte's going to win for governor. And what's kind of interesting in all the polls, and we've done some internal looks as well, they show, up to maybe a 10-point differential in between Trump and Kelly. Trump down by 4, Kelly up by 6. So we can expect a lot of potential split ticket voting. So somebody votes maybe for one person at the top of the ticket. Like, say, for example, somebody votes for Harris. Then they switch over for governor, vote for Kelly. Then they might switch back and forth. New Hampshire's notorious for voting.
Ticket split. So here's a thought. I mean, is it possible that instead of Trump having coattails in New Hampshire, that it's Kelly that has coattails that may help Trump?
Boy, I don't know if the governor would have coattails up, but it doesn't not appear that Trump would be a drag. It's kind of the opposite. He's not a drag on her. It doesn't appear. Could she help him with turnout? Boy, I don't know, because the intensity of Kelly supporters is more moderated than the intensity of Trump supporters. I mean, Trump supporters will crawl over glass, and I think Kelly supporters might crawl over with like syrup. It's kind of like a little bit.
New Hampshire maple syrup, of course, right?
Of course,
So,
of course.
So wait a minute. So to me, the real question then becomes, right? Because if you're a Trump voter, there's no way you're voting for Joyce Craig, right? I mean, you want to talk about a
Right.
socialist train wreck? Look at what she did to Manchester, right? We'll get to that in a second, but
Yeah.
right. So to me, if I'm I find it hard to believe that a Trump voter, if there's increased turnout here, and you're right, they would walk over on glass or over hot coals in bare feet to be able to vote. And I've already voted, by the way, since I'll be out of state. But so to me, they're going to vote for Kelly anyway. I mean, they may not be as passionate about her as they are for Trump. Understood. But she's, dyed in the wool Republicans. She's more in the traditional New England model, but there's not a comparison between the two of her and Craig.
Right. Well, the thing that we're encouraging are the Trump supporters, and Trump is drawing out voters who might not normally vote. And so his base is just tremendous. Whether it's big enough to win in New Hampshire, we'll find out November 5th. But his base is going to vote. What we're working towards is making sure that some of those Trump voters don't just bullet vote for Trump and say, I've done my duty and leave. Please vote all the way down the ballot. So we're a little bit, we want to make sure that we minimize that. And, Republicans are going to vote for Trump and Kelly. Democrats are going to vote for Harris and Craig. The people in the middle are going to vote more for Kelly. They seem to be trending more towards Kelly in the governor's race, and a little bit towards Harris in the general. If we can shift that middle people a little bit more towards Trump, game over. We run the whole ticket. But at the moment, it looks like that middle ground where the fight is over those middle voters, Kelly has a better chance and then Trump. But we've still got a few weeks left, and that trend has been going our direction.
And I think, people really are just sick and tired of the insanity. They just want some real, practical, pragmatic leadership.
Common sense.
Yeah. We're seeing the results of the leftist policies, and it's not good. So people are starting to reject it. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think we're going to have a stunner here on November 5th. And it's going to be just like 2016, but it's not going to be close. It's not going to be those little small margins. It's going to be Trump's going to win almost every one of the battleground states, and I believe we're going to look more like 2016, where it was 1,700 votes, than in 2020. And it's possible he can put it over the goal line here in New Hampshire. It's absolutely possible, and we're working that way as if we are a battleground state.
And for our listeners, just under Trivial Pursuit, the last Republican to win presidential New Hampshire in a presidential race was George Herbert Walker Bush, correct? 41.
W in 2000.
Oh,
was it? So it was George W. Okay. So it wasn't the father.
George W. 2000, but Clinton won here before that. So we've got to go back. It was father before that. Yeah.
Chairman Ager, before we went live, I had asked you about Lily Tang. She's somebody who I had originally seen, believe it or not, on Tim Pool on YouTube. And I just remember being like, wow, who's this lady? She's so passionate about, capitalism, America, patriotism. And I was like, this lady is so she's just such a freaking fireball. Like, I love this. And then fast forward to 2022, I'm at the Lilac Breakfast in New Hampshire, and she's there running for Congress. And she's running again this year.
I just want to be clear, New Hampshire too. So, Mr. Chairman, all yours.
Okay.
So
she's not running for president.
No. Oh, is that what I said?
No.
Is that what I said? Oh, okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Chairman. This is just Eric and I bantering.
CD2. Yeah, that's okay. CD2 leans left. CD1 is kind of even, leans just slightly right. So it's a tougher district.
Okay.
but it's an open seat. It's an open seat.
Oh, so there's no incumbent.
No incumbent, and the Democrats had a tough primary, just like we did. And so we have Maggie Goodlander, who's Jake Sullivan's wife. And so she is a consummate swamp insider. At her wedding, we have her wedding pictures. There's Hillary Clinton, Huma Abedin. I mean, it is like, rogues.
What? She planted?
Oh, yeah.
Well,
and so she is.
Let me ask you a question about her. So here's my with Goodlander, right? She is not only a DC animal, she was a special advisor in the White House, right? Was currently before she came to run, right? So, and as such, she supported all the Biden policies, right?
Yes.
Including two-state solution, which, frankly, is been a failed U.S. policy. The Biden policy of let's pay for hostages. I think, what did we pay? $6 billion to Iran to release 5 U.S. hostages, right? Which only encourages more
Israel.
Bad behavior, right? To bomb Israel. And then this whole policy of appeasement. So doesn't Maggie Goodlander have to answer for that? And has anybody in New Hampshire asked her about that?
She is connected. Yes. Now, yes, she is connected to them, and Lily's using that she's part of the Biden administration. And so everything that we don't like about that administration, she's part of.
Yeah.
She just recently moved back to New Hampshire to run for office. And I mean, literally, she moved here to run for office. And, she's, her family, in fairness to her, she was born here. Her family were Republicans here, well-known Republican family in Nashua. And she grew up here and then went away to boarding school, then got a job, and then years later came back to run for Congress.
Yeah.
So
they did that in Vermont too.
Yeah. It's kind of, a thing. Go shopping for a place to run for Congress. But I don't think she had a driver's license when she was here. So she really didn't know the state, didn't really know much about it at all. And she's kind of learning the state now. So hopefully she'll learn it if she wins before she would go to represent us. But I live in her district, and I'm certainly not voting for her. But she's got money. She's got swamp Washington D.C., Hillary Clinton, George Soros type of money, and Lily does not, which puts her at a distinct disadvantage. So Lily's turning her charm, her energy and enthusiasm, and she's been doing the grassroots thing. She did that in the primary. Same thing happened in the primary. There was a well-funded challenger, but she had done so much grassroots, leather pounding that
for
she
years
won.
Now.
And people were surprised. People were surprised when she won. I think they could equally be surprised here on November 5th. She's working it hard on the ground, and you can't help but like her as a person, even if you're a Democrat. She's a likable person. She's got really energy, enthusiasm. And if she got to D.C., she would be like running around. I mean, she would run between meetings because she'd want to not miss anything. That's the kind of I can imagine running down Congress. Come on, let's go. The meeting's getting ready to start.
What do you mean? Communist China is terrible. You can't pass that bill. She'll be yelling at everybody from the floor. I really encourage everybody to go to Generally Irritable. We just re-released our interview with her back from 2022 and some shorts from that. She's really great. Share it with everybody in New Hampshire. If you're listening, those of you on our radio listeners, please go check out those videos and share them, especially if you're in District 2. That's my plug.
So, Mr. Chairman, I have another question for you, which is a little. Lily's
more also got a great sense. Great sense.
Yeah, I have a question that's a little more in the weeds. A couple weeks ago, I was at a friendly poker game with some friends of mine, and one of the guys at the poker game said, "Where does the name Goodlander come from, anyways?" Right? She grew up as a Tamposi, was her last name, right? She's married to Jake Sullivan, and I know this was her name at birth, but how do you get the name Goodlander at birth when your parents are Tamposi, right? Tamposi, if I got my spelling right, and you're married to Jake Sullivan? Where's
a really good question.
Robert, don't you know when you cross a Tamposi with a Sullivan, you get a Goodlander?
I'm like, and I looked at the guy. It was a friendly poker game. We were having a lot of fun, and he looked at and he threw that out, and I went, I never thought of that. So I looked it up, and I'm like, son of a gun, he's right. I'm like, she's born in Tamposi, she's married to a Sullivan. Where's the Goodlander? Unless, of course, it was the milkman. I don't know. Don't touch that, Mr. Chairman.
We're gonna let Chris out of that and go to break. All right. Thank you so much for being with us this evening, Chairman Ager.
Wait, we're bringing him back. We've got more to talk about.
Oh, are you coming back for the next segment?
He is. We didn't do CD1. We got a couple other things I need to talk to him about.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Unless, of course, he needs to go have dinner.
No, he's stuck with us. Too bad, sucker.
I backed him into a corner. He can't say no.
Well, just like Chairman Ager is a defender of American freedom in New Hampshire, so is ASIC. Let's hear from our sponsor.
America came into being based on a shared belief and a common set of values. Unlike other nations that were bound together based on common ancestry, race, or caste, we came into being based on a simple and shared set of ideals. That the power of government is based on the consent of the governed. That life, the freedom to live life on our own terms in our own way, free from government interference, and liberty, our most precious value, and the pursuit of happiness, which means we are free to pursue that which we choose, with the knowledge and courage to know that nothing is guaranteed to us in this life. Those values, America was founded on these basic inalienable rights. Freedom to pray to God in our own way. Freedom to think and speak freely without fear of punishment or harm. And freedom to gather in our places of worship and in our local taverns. And freedom to defend ourselves, our families, our homes, and our neighbors as we see fit. The American Center for Education and Knowledge is dedicated to protecting American exceptionalism anywhere and everywhere it is threatened. ASIC is a 501c3 and depends on your tax-deductible donations. Please help us continue our fight.
And speaking of continuing the fight, we've got Dr. Lori Feynman watching. She's competing with you to be to be the host.
Well, by the way, based on looks, she wins this hands down over the bald guy with the goatee. So
yeah, we're gonna take over. We're gonna take over of the people and be like cussing people out and stuff.
That's because we're all faux men here, and the women are the only ones who are because and what was it? Because if you're not voting if you're not voting for Biden, Harris, you ain't black or whatever they said back in 2020.
Yeah,
Mr. Chairman, I want to jump to the governor's race. Ooh. So we have the former mayor of Manchester, now deposed thanks to you, Joyce Craig. You have former Senator Kelly Ayotte running for governor. I want to focus a little bit on Joyce Craig because here's what I don't understand, right? She has a record to run on, right? She was ostensibly, when she was elected, what was it, 3 terms, I think, as mayor of Manchester, chose not to run for a 4th term. And she was running to solve the opioid crisis, to bring high-tech industry to Manchester, or Manchganistan, as you and I like to call it. And then she was going to, she's going to reform the schools and make the education great. Tell me about how that record is in Manchester, because I know what I know, but for our listeners,
okay,
how'd she do? I'm asking the chairman, how'd she do?
I know. Well, you got to tell me. Okay, hold up, just really quick for people who don't know about Manchester, New Hampshire. It is a city in a small state that has big city problems. Okay, they have like wicked, mega big city problems across the border from a drug town and like all kinds of crazy stuff. Manchester has it bad. So I just had to give that preface so that everybody understands why we call it Manchganistan.
Manchganistan, right.
Well, okay, now go.
Yeah, we're we're retiring Afghanistan now with Jay in charge.
Yes.
And some of the things that, on Joyce's record for education, we have the standardized testing and we score all of the towns, all the school districts. We have 184 school districts. Manchester rated 180 out of 184 for their performance. So, Joyce would say, wow, I beat three other municipalities. Not good. Absolutely abysmal in education. As far as crime and opioids deaths, the opioid deaths crept up, across the country, but in Manchester, people were complaining that they couldn't walk down Elm Street without tiptoeing around needles because there were so many drug addicts camping out on the streets. So the death rate had gone up several years in a row under Craig. Wow. This year, they're projected to go from they were 79 and 58 the last 2 years under Craig. And this year, it looks like the total number is projected by December 31st to be 44. Still 44 too many, sure. But it's trending correctly. The streets are much cleaner now under Jay. And they're cleaner because in July, the Supreme Court said you can make ordinances to prevent camping in city parks and city property. The day after that Supreme Court ruling, 24 hours later, the Board of Aldermen, which is also Republican controlled for the first time in like 34 years, also to have an ordinance prohibiting camping in public places. So the tent cities, they started to remove them, but they were compassionate with the people. They say, hey, we have shelters that you could go to. We have other ways that we can help, but it's not acceptable for you to camp out in our city parks, use your drugs, leave your needles on the floor, defecate out in the city. So Jay put a stop to that, and you can tell the difference. We're still cleaning up some areas, but you can see it. And so opioid doses are going down, opioid deaths are going down, but he's done it in a compassionate way, not just bulldoze over the place. But they're trying to take care of these people who have addiction problems, mental health problems, and they need to be addressed. And Jay is really good at that. He's working with the services that provide that. Education, they're cracking down hard. Nobody wants to be 180 out of 184. So Jay's cracking down there hard. The mayor's on the school board. So they're working. That's going to be a longer term problem to deal with.
And that's there's a lot to unwind there, I imagine. Oh, sorry, Chairman Ager. There's a lot to unwind because if you figure people have just been left out in the streets for years to get worse and worse and worse. Like, think about how much more effort it will be to help those people recover. And so I think just focusing on what actually matters is going to make a difference. Like, you don't have this idea that Republicans, because we don't want people to live on the street, are uncompassionate or like mean. That's not compassion.
No, it's neglect and abuse, frankly.
They're dying. They're worse.
Right. Well, we had
Ericka, can you hear me?
Yeah,
a lot of the people who were homeless on the streets of Manchester were not from Manchester.
What?
So is that Kelly? Is that
a lot
part
of the people
Kelly,
that were homeless
slogan, which is "Don't mess up New Hampshire"?
So wait a second. So is this one of those circumstances where it's like, oh, we just have a bunch of homeless people services, and so a bunch of random people come here?
Right. People were coming from out of state and from other parts of New Hampshire where it's better in our view if locally you take problems in your family, in your local community. Right. But if one city says, hey, I'm going to give you a bunch of free stuff, you can camp out, I'll bring you free needles, I'll bring you whatever you need, they're going to attract them and they're going to create critical mass for a huge problem.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Burlington,
so
Vermont was even toying with.
If you take care of it locally, we have a high care of that. Yeah. And it was manageable. But if every town sends all their homeless people, everybody with problems to one place, it becomes a disaster. So Jay's working that.
Good.
But he also has history in his work with Catholic charities and how to deal with these kind of problems. Joyce Craig had no concept of how to deal with the problem other than to put her hand out for more money, to buy more tents, to give them more, more free stuff. And free needles and everything else. And so it didn't fix the problem. It got worse. Jay, we're starting to turn it around.
That's fantastic.
So going back to the governor, so how did someone like Joyce Craig beat Colin Van Ostern, who was on the executive council, right? I thought he would have been the nominee. And I don't expect you to get inside a Democrat's head, but how does she win? I mean, because her record is abysmal as far as I can tell. And yet, look at what I did to Manchester and I'm going to do that for New Hampshire is hardly a slogan.
Well, so Joyce Craig beat Cindy Warmington, the executive counselor for governor. And we had both of our ads ready to go. It didn't matter who won. Kelly was going to win, or whoever the Republican was going to win. You either had the failed Manchester mayor or the big pharma lobbyist who thought OxyContin wasn't addictive. Those were the choices for the Democrats. And so we got the failed. Okay. We would have been just as happy with either. Or Chuck Morris, who Kelly beat convincingly. She won very handily. Whereas the Democrats, it was a very close race. So it's harder for them to heal, where we healed much, much more quickly. And Chuck gave a great concession speech, came to our breakfast a couple days later, the Unity breakfast, really, really first-class operation. So
he was a class act.
She was a prosecutor, she was attorney general, senator, and she's just a good New Hampshire, pragmatic, non-ideologue Republican, just like regular old-fashioned Republican from New Hampshire. That's what Kelly's like, and that's what resonates with average people.
Yeah.
So I think she's going to do extremely well.
And going back to the slogan, I do love. I love. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
We're having
a little bit
audio technical issues.
But here's my. I love the slogan when I drive around and I see the AOT plaques up or the signs up that say "Don't mass up New Hampshire," which sums up. I think that taps into something very core in most New Hampshire voters who do not want to become Massachusetts. And it's like, you guys can come visit, but go home, leave, you want tax-free stuff, come here, buy the liquor, no problem. Go home and don't mass up New Hampshire. I think it's a brilliant slogan.
No, it works. Some people didn't like it at first. They're like, why are you picking on Mass? And it's like, well, because we're New Hampshire. I mean, they make jokes about us, but they don't stick. They do. They deserve it. And it's kind of nice to have some pride in your state and highlight the things that you're really great at. And it's easy compared to Massachusetts to do that because we have so many advantages. You don't see a lot of people moving from New Hampshire to Mass, but a lot of people from Mass move to New Hampshire. And contrary to popular belief, more people from Mass moved up in 2022, which is the last year I have data for. More of the people who moved up were registered Republicans than Democrats, which is shocking because there's so few in Mass to start with. So they're actually welcome. The Mass folks moving here are welcome because they're moving here because they want New Hampshire to be like New Hampshire, not Vermont, not excuse me, not Vermont.
No, it's okay.
But certainly not Massachusetts.
Neither. You
And
don't want New
moving into
Hampshire
the
to be like either.
Southern communities, so they can be near their family. So they're moving there, and so they can commute and visit their family and friends with a better lifestyle, better taxes, more freedom, everything. So it's the best of both worlds for a lot of those people. And a lot of them are older, either at retirement or near retirement, which is a great place for them to live. And we've got a few millionaires moving up too because of the Massachusetts millionaire tax. It's like, we don't want you. It's like, that's nuts. We'll take them. And so we have quite a few advantages, just the quality of life across the board. And I just couldn't imagine living in Mass. You know, you drive around down there and you have a shell casing from, dropped in your car. They pull you over. It's a year in prison.
By.
This is nuts. It's
wow.
Being on
Live
almost
free or
if
die.
you wanted to.
Live free or die.
Amen. Amen to that. And amen. If you have gotten something out of this episode so far, we ask that you like this video, share it with your friends, especially if you live in your New Hampshire. If you are one of our radio listeners, make sure to share this episode to hear about what is going on there. And most importantly, subscribe to the channel that you're watching on and support our sponsors. Thank you so much, Chairman Ager, for visiting with us today. Good luck up there in New Hampshire.
All right. Thank you. We got this.
And counting. I got it. Socialism.
Yep.
The goal of socialism is communism. The world is quite familiar with socialism and the horrors socialism has brought with it. It wasn't that long ago. Actually, it's still with us. Socialism creeps into government slowly until it's too late. Socialism, the big lie. Yes, it could happen anywhere. This educational video was brought to you by the American Center for Education and Knowledge and paid for by people like you who care about the future of our democracy. Please help us continue our work educating the American public and consider supporting ASIC by making a tax-deductible donation at asicfund.org.
Dun, 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 dun.
And we're back. And thank you again, Mr. Chairman. Sorry about that audio issues.
Yes.
I still don't mess up New Hampshire. I was like, and he's right. The first time I saw that, I was like, that's a little ballsy, right? I mean, because you're going after another state. But the more I drove by it, I'm going, you know what? Damn right. Don't mess up New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Which
I
was exactly what I think.
Something. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I was going to use something like that in Vermont, and then I was told not to because more than 60% of the people who live in Vermont are not from there. So I was told.
What was your slogan? What was your slogan going to be?
From Vermont for Vermont.
It should have been just Yankee go home. Yankee go home, right?
Get out of here. Don't want to get.
Andy. So let's go back to presidential politics as we are 20 days and counting. And folks, the next couple of shows, we're going to be bringing on a lot of experts and interesting, whether it's public officials and other people to talk about the upcoming election. As I said in the monologue, I don't think this is going to be, if this is a free and fair election, this may be a Reagan-Mondale wipeout, right? This is not even going to be close, but that you're getting under the skin of the other side because now they're going after, right? Barack Obama going after black men. It's cool to vote for Kamala. And then if you listen to sort of the milquetoast people during the day on The View or anything like that, they're now saying that any man who supports Trump is a faux male, meaning a fake man. That's not real masculinity. That Governor Tim Walz is their idea of a real man.
The guy who can't load a shotgun.
Yeah, just don't let him load a. Yeah, this is a guy who's going to fight for us. Yeah, okay. But so and then I heard earlier today, any man who votes for Trump needs therapy.
Oh,
right now,
if re-education camp.
Right. Well, if Dr. Lori Feynman was on the show, she would say she would agree, right?
Well, everybody needs therapy. Everybody needs therapy is
I don't need.
probably
I
what
don't.
Lori would say.
I don't need therapy. I
I
mean, if I hang out with you much more, I might need
You will
therapy. But,
definitely need therapy for sure.
right.
I need
There,
therapy. I'm in therapy
there you go.
sometimes.
And yeah, they say, you hated your father, you hated your mother, your parents didn't have any kids that lived.
Oh
That's
yeah.
what they say in therapy, right?
It's oh
So
yeah, and it's everything is everyone else's fault but mine, and it's about my truth. And I actually, like, real talk, I actually have some opinions about the psychotherapy industry, but we can save that for another show.
I
I
think
won't
you
I
can
won't
have,
derail us on
don't
that
derail us.
conversation.
But I want to go back to this. If you look at what Kamala Harris is now doing, right? I mean, when the monologue, I'm talking about rope-a-dope strategy, which is really what it is, because these soft interviews. Now, Trump's going on Joe Rogan, right? You heard that?
Is that confirmed? I heard a rumor, but I didn't know it was confirmed.
And don't hold me to it. I believe it's confirmed, but again, I could be wrong. Wrong. Last time I was wrong. I thought I was wrong once, but I made a mistake. Because that's the male thing, right? Because we're misogynists, we need therapy, we're faux men, all those things. And since I'm not voting,
so lucky you guys don't just backhand all of us. Like, I'm sorry, real talk. Like, women, y'all out there browbeating men and acting like absolute nags and hags. Like, look, we have the right to vote because of men.
Wait. Nags, hags equals no shags, right?
Yes.
How's that?
I'm with it.
Okay.
Whatever you, yes, I'm in agreement. Okay, I'm sorry. What were we talking about? I'm sorry. That was my fault.
Kamala Harris's campaign. You derailed us, but here,
shags. Shags. Kamala Harris. Wait, nope. Won't go.
No,
there.
I
go
didn't
ahead.
say.
Nope. Go ahead.
No, you're talking about women in general. How much coffee have you had for this episode?
I had an energy drink.
Clearly. Whoa. Okay. On an empty stomach, no doubt.
I'm ready. I'm ready to go, you guys.
But the other thing, on a very serious note, we often talk about how personnel is policy, right? And one of the things I've not been able to wrap my head around is no one is focusing on who the people are, the assistants in the White House. I want to bring up a couple. I want to bring up a couple of names. Right. The first one is, and maybe you can pull this up. People wonder why the Biden administration doesn't support Israel. And they say that they do, but they really don't. They give lip service to it. I want to pull up someone named Maher Bitar. Right. So here's a guy, Maher Bitar. He is front and center in the Biden White House. He is, basically linked to the Muslim Brotherhood. Right. And here's a take on Instagram. But the point in all of this is that this guy could be the next director of national intelligence, the head of DNI, right? Check this out.
Oh, hold on.
Well, if you can do, you having a date today, Ericka?
I'm telling you.
In the administration, this is Maher Bitar. He's the Deputy Assistant to the President and the Coordinator for Intelligence and Defense Policy at the National Security Council. That's a very influential position. He's a Palestinian American and a former board member of Students for Justice in Palestine. That's one of the most prominent campus hate groups. They're associated with the Muslim Brotherhood, and that's an Egyptian Islamic supremacy organization whose stated goal is to spread Islam around the world and raise the flag of jihad. That's their words. Hamas is an offshoot of them. Now, Students for Justice in Palestine, unsurprisingly, endorsed Hamas and the atrocities of October 7th. This guy, Maher Bitar, also worked at UNRWA, which is obviously deep ties to Hamas, and he's heavily involved in anti-Israel indoctrination. He also did an internship at the umbrella organization that funds another anti-Israel campus group called Jewish Voice for Peace. They've always got these deceptive names. Anyway, he's effectively a Muslim Brotherhood plant in the U.S. government in a senior defense-related position. I couldn't.
All right, so let's hold it there.
Are we? Is this confirmed?
Oh, what's up? Oh, look him up.
This is like, by the way, for sure.
Wait a minute. I'm going to give you a bunch of names. All right. You have Nazrina Bargzi. She's a deputy counsel and future Muslim liaison. This is a woman in the White House, right? Interviewed by the FBI after 9/11 because she supported the Islamic terrorist at Gitmo, and she was, from Berkeley. You've got Mazen Basrawi. She's the current Muslim liaison in the White House, and she's, she attends conferences with, those unindicted co-conspirators for the World Trade Center bombing. You've got Brenda Abdalal.
What?
I mean, she's a piece of work. Accuses Israel of ethnic cleansing. She's the Assistant Secretary for Partnership and Engagement at Homeland Security. She's been, appeared at a convention where other speakers called for a caliphate to rule Islamic law, freeing Islamic terrorists and destroying Israel. These are the people, ladies and gentlemen. I can go on.
What?
There's like,
what? She said what?
Wait. I can go on. There is. You need to look up who all these assistants are as the White House. Hold on. Wait,
I need it. Wait, hang on. Okay, I need a second, Robert. Okay.
Breathe.
So now
Breathe.
we're talking about all these people who are basically associated with terror organizations. We've talked about Chinese spies, multiples of them being hired by, Feinstein and Swalwell and all over how are these people getting jobs? Are y'all doing background checks?
Ericka, Ericka, breathe. Okay. And I get what you're saying, but this
has to be on purpose.
Of course it's on purpose, but the point is that elections do have consequences. And if you want to understand the Biden administration's policy towards Israel in the Middle East, you have to look at the staff that's behind them. And they're all very public about it. Again, Maher Bitar, right? Maherbitar. If Kamala Harris wins, he is the next, head of DNI. And then the other names that I'm giving you here, look up Nasrina, Nasrina Bargzi, Bargzie. Do your own research, ladies and gentlemen. Don't believe me. Right. Then there's Mazen Basrawi, Mazen Basrawi. Then you've got Brenda Abdalal, Abdellall. I mean, the list goes on and on, right? And look, let's understand something. Let's just go with Bitar himself. If this guy is the senior most official in the Biden White House responsible for coordinating U.S. government intelligence and defense policy. So is it any wonder? But that's what the media doesn't report. That's, again, one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. This moral equivalence, right? So on a very serious note, I mean, we're not going to end on a serious note because I want to get to my favorite Saturday Night Live, because you're losing when Saturday Night Live trashes you. But on the serious note, ladies and gentlemen, the election isn't close. Right. Yeah. I don't care what they tell you in the polls. These are opinion journalists that have an agenda. Mm-hmm. Number two, you have to, if you want to understand, right. But if you want to understand policy, look at, the fish rots from the head down, look at who the president or vice president is, but look at who their staffs are, because their staffs are the ones that have to implement the policy. I've just given you some names to look at. Last but not least.
Oh,
you're losing public opinion, and you're losing an election when you get skewered to death on Saturday Night Live.
Dun, dun, dun.
So I want to show everyone this. If you haven't seen this, it's funny in a really sad and pathetic way. So, well, I mean, but you got to tee this up. If you haven't seen this on Saturday Night Live, you're missing out.
All right.
And this is
so for those of you listening, it's the actor jokingly dancing, being Kamala Harris,
like Kamala Harris.
So good, and Donald doesn't think I'm black.
Right.
Okay, listen up, everyone. We couldn't have gotten here without one man, and his name is Joe Biden. Get on out,
Joe Biden. All right, and let's go to the end of this, because I don't want to hear Joe Biden, but.
Together, we can end the dramala.
This is the setup.
And the tromala. And go relax in our pajamas. Because if there's one thing I know, he's back. He's back. All right, you want in? Yeah. Come on in. Okay. Hey there.
For those of you on the radio, you're missing out. But look.
Now it's Joe Biden sniffing Kamala Harris.
Okay.
but go,
here?
I don't know.
yeah, go watch the video. It's funny stuff. But most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, before we end, because there's one last thing we
got 10 minutes.
We have more because I want to talk Israel Appreciation Day.
Yeah,
we'll get that. But look, go vote and make sure it's not a close election.
Vote.
And the truth is, I really don't care who you vote for. In all honesty, go vote. It is a sacred privilege in this country. In other countries, people die to be able to cast their votes.
Literally, we had people die here to be able to cast votes.
You're gonna start that again?
Yes.
Okay. So anyway, see, it doesn't say 10 minutes for me, but that's okay.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to segue, and again, to all our sponsors of Israel Appreciation Day, to all our speakers, a month goes really quick. We have the Jewish holidays, but for those of our listeners, I want you to see what you missed, because we're going to be re-releasing Israel Appreciation Day as a movie later this fall. Here is the highlights from Israel Appreciation Day.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, hey, hang on. All right, you ready? Here we go.
I am.
For being here. This is the first ever Israel Appreciation Day.
I believe in the words of Israel's first leader, David Ben-Gurion, who said, "One does not write history, one makes history."
The history of the Jewish people is one of rising and flourishing, despite thousands of years of being attacked, exiled, and scapegoated.
And I'm honored to join all of you in celebrating the first annual Israel Appreciation Day. And there are many reasons to appreciate Israel. It's one of America's closest allies in the world. It's a safe haven for persecuted people, and it's a wellspring of innovation.
The land of Israel was given to the Jewish people, not by the United Nations, but by God himself.
Well, no one wants to fight. I'd love not to have this weapon, to be in a bulletproof vest, to serve in the IDF.
We cannot allow the worst instincts in our society to win. We must stand proud, and we must stand tall.
This is the Jewish moment, when the Jewish people stands for life over death and shows the lost and confused West how to survive.
From the Chalutzim, the pioneers, the original and early inhabitants of the land, even before the official creation of the State of Israel in 1948.
In my mind, one does not have to be Jewish to support Israel in their battle against the evil that is Hamas. One only has to be human.
Our Jewish community is stronger than ever.
And Israel's two things. It's not just a place, it's also a people.
We're only a generation away from the Holocaust. And understanding, yes, it could happen again. My daughter came home and said, is there going to be another Holocaust?
I couldn't live with myself if I didn't stand with Israel and the Jewish people at this moment in time when they most need us.
A free press during the Israel-Hamas conflict has provided real-time updates on terror attacks. And if we don't learn from those conflicts and wars, we're doomed to repeat the same mistake.
And it takes a lot of courage and a lot of strength to come out and be a voice of one sometimes. What did you do professionally prior to October 7th?
It is your duty as a Jew to shine the light. Go on to social media.
Why would you flourish under persecution? And the answer is that's our nature. That's always been our nature. When our enemies terrorize us and they come after us, what you see is a direct correlation to innovation.
The nation of Israel lives.
And for those of you on the radio, go back and see if you can figure out who those voices are. We had Senator Rubio, we had Congressman Richie Torres, we had John Androsik, Five for Fighting, we had Hillel Fold from Israel, we had Dr. Lori Feynman, there's so many people who contributed to just an incredible event. Kaya Jones, Rebecca DeMornay, Samantha Edis. We had, we had Jennifer Cohen. We had Bellamy Bellucci. We had.
What was that? What was that opening quote? I'm trying to remember it now. That was included in that edit.
From me or from whom?
From you.
So David Ben-Gurion was the first leader of Israel, and he basically said that one does not write history, right? That's that old expression, you can write history or read history. So he actually took it one step further. He said, one doesn't write history, one makes it.
Yeah.
Right. And
I
Israel
love
is
that.
making its own history.
And it's so true because, a lot of times people say things like, don't sit on the sidelines or don't be a ref or things like that. And now is one of those times to not be sitting on the sidelines when you see bad things happening. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, now is the time to say something. And I love, that's what Rebecca De Mornay said. She was like, I can't imagine not standing with the people of Israel during this time. Particularly when we're seeing these crazy protests that just seem to not really take history into consideration. That's all I want. I just want you to actually read textbooks, learn history.
Look, good luck with that. I mean, most people get their sound bites in 30 seconds or that was a 3-minute trailer. I had a friend of mine who watched the highlight reel and went, this is really good. I normally never watch anything more than 2 minutes. I was like, okay, but so you listen to someone like Melanie Phillips, who was one of our two keynote speakers, right?
She was great.
And noted journalist and author, right? British, born in Britain. And she basically said that Israel is setting the example and fighting and showing the West how to fight for its survival. So that it's real. And it really is the point, right? It's not just Israel's survival. This isn't, as we have said ad nauseum, just about the Jews.
That's right.
This is about Western civilization. So, what I'm happiest about is we were able to put together that show that really highlights and showcases a lot, not all, but a lot of the things that makes Israel special. Again, not just because it's a Jewish state, not just because it's a U.S. ally, but what I want everyone to know is go to IsraelAppreciationDay.com. We're updating the website for everyone. We're basically, we're going to be releasing, if you missed the live show, we're going to be releasing or re-releasing or rebroadcasting Israel Appreciation Day, not the live event, Israel Appreciation Day, the movie later this fall with some premieres and some other things. You'll also be able to, download it. Well, not download it. You'll be able to view it online.
Stream it.
But you'll be able to stream it. Those are really the important things, right? Because this is connected, right? The elections are in 20 days. So think about this connection, Ericka. If Israel is indeed is a vanguard of fighting for Western civilization, and in some senses is fighting the battle for the West that the U.S. hasn't really fully engaged, and elections matter, and the personnel is policy that people appoint, then there's a direct connection between what we're talking about with Israel Appreciation Day, who wins the next election, what people they appoint as personnel, and what policies they implement to help Israel finish this fight, as opposed to threaten to embargo weapons or tell them not to go into Rafah, or they're going to pay a consequence, or leak their plans of their retaliatory strike to Iran in the public, in the press, to say, oh, this is what Israel's going to do to try to pressure Israel. I mean, if you want to know why we have the policies we do, look at who the personnel is, but it directly connects to Israel Appreciation Day, and it directly connects to Israel being the vanguard of this fight for Western civilization, because, as Melanie Phillips says, is leading the way or showing the West how to fight for its own survival. Get the connection?
I do. And think about this, Robert. We just had the entire East Coast get devastated by multiple hurricanes 20 days from an election. How many people voted early and put them in mailboxes that have now been washed away? How are they going to have polling places, voting booths, all of the other things? So, ladies and gentlemen, number one, if you're not in one of those states, it's even more important that you show up. Let's have a landslide electoral college and a popular vote. If every American showed up and voted that actually has the thought process to vote, we can show America we can show these leftist politicians the door. Okay, so really, you guys, for all of our viewers, for all of our listeners out there, there's one particular that I'm speaking to right now, I know is watching. You have
one in particular. Can't we speak to more than one?
But I know there's one in particular that's watching that I'm specifically talking to right now. Your vote matters. And if the sane people sit this out, then it's your fault when people like Kamala Harris get elected.
I don't think this. I don't think people are sitting out. I think Chairman Ager is correct. I think that the people that support Trump, and even the ones who don't support Trump the man but support Trump the policy, will walk over glass, broken glass to cast their votes. My question is, because now I got to put on my tinfoil hat, is, we give billions of dollars to Ukraine, we give billions of dollars to Hamas, right? And the people in North Carolina just got a check for $750.
Oh, it's sick.
Right?
It's sick, Robert.
For FEMA support. Yeah. Could it be that that people in that part of North Carolina are Republican voters? That's why they're not getting their support. I mean, I don't know.
Oh,
look,
wait.
I haven't done the demographic study, but I think there's your tinfoil hat. So in any event,
doesn't work with my headphones. All right, you guys, we have made our way around the hour. Thank you for joining us. If you have liked what you have heard, we ask that you like the video, share it with your friends, and most importantly, subscribe and leave us a comment. The algorithm on all of the platforms loves your engagement. So give us a comment, give us a thumbs up, all of the things.
Thanks for joining us, folks. We'll talk to you next week.